Jubal wasn't just another Western, it was Hollywood's Othello on the range, a CinemaScope jealousy nightmare where method acting drove cowboys insane, a suspended contract star destroyed his own career by refusing a bonus, and the man who became Marty on screen transformed into Shakespeare's most despicable villain for the second time in 2 years. Behind those haunting images of Wyoming's Grand Tetons lies a production history soaked in casting rejection, directorial clashes over scenery-chewing performances, and the transformation of a sprawling novel into a 101-minute psychological powder keg. Aldo Ray got suspended for refusing the role that made Rod Steiger unforgettable. Delmer Daves fought with his producer over whether Steiger should be reined in. Gary Cooper rejected the lead 14 years before cameras rolled. And when the dust settled in 1956, this dark adult Western had earned a 100% critical approval rating, while most audiences missed it entirely. Here are 10 dark facts about Jubal. From the method actor who infuriated real wranglers to the British actress, making her American debut as cinema's most venomous seductress. And stick around for the bonus fact. It involves Ernest Borgnine and Rod Steiger playing the same character in 2 different versions. Let's ride into Jackson Hole. Number 10. Aldo Ray's career suicide. Columbia Pictures casts contract star Aldo Ray as Pinky, the vicious ranch hand whose jealousy drives the entire tragedy. Ray reads the script. He understands the role's potential. This is a meaty villain part in a prestige Western with Glenn Ford, not another throwaway supporting turn. But Ray makes a calculation that destroys his career. The actor has been loaned out to other studios multiple times during his Columbia contract. Each time, Columbia collects significant fees for his services. Warner Brothers pays top dollar for Ray's work in Battle Cry. The money flows to the studio, while Ray receives only his standard contract salary. No bonuses, no percentage of the loan-out fees. Ray grows resentful. When Columbia assigns him to Jubal, he demands a bonus reflecting the money the studio has earned from loaning him out. Columbia refuses. Ray refuses to report to the set. Columbia Pictures suspends him immediately. While suspended, he cannot work for any studio. The income stops, his momentum stalls. Rod Steiger inherits the role. Steiger transforms Pinky into one of cinema's most memorable villains, delivering a performance that elevates the entire film. His work in Jubal leads directly to better roles, more recognition, and eventually an Oscar for In the Heat of the Night. Meanwhile, Ray sits out the suspension, watching his replacement build a career on the role he rejected. When Columbia finally lifts the suspension, the roles offered afterward decline in quality. His career never recovers. Ray later works steadily in B-movies and television, but the suspension marks the end of his potential as a major star. One refused role, one demand for fair compensation, one career destroyed. Number 9. Steiger's method madness infuriates wranglers. Rod Steiger arrives on location in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, fully committed to method acting techniques learned at the actor's studio. He doesn't just play Pinky during scenes. He becomes Pinky continuously, staying in character between takes, maintaining the ranch hand's snarling hostility and coiled menace throughout production. The immersive approach works brilliantly for his performance. It also drives the real cowboys absolutely insane. The wranglers hired to handle horses and cattle during filming are actual working ranch hands, not Hollywood stunt performers. They don't understand why this New York actor refuses to drop character when the camera stops rolling. Steiger's constant intensity, his refusal to engage normally during downtime, his perpetual embodiment of a vicious, jealous bully, it all strikes the wranglers as ridiculous and pretentious. Glenn Ford observes the growing tension. Years later, Ford addresses it diplomatically. Rod, well, in kindness, I think I should say he did a great job with his role. However, the method got a little too much for some of us, especially the wranglers. Look, Rod won an Academy Award, didn't he? Whatever Rod was doing in his role for Jubal probably worked for him. He was intense, I'll tell you that. The carefully chosen words reveal Ford's actual opinion. In kindness and intense function as polite euphemisms for insufferable and exhausting. Ford recognizes that Steiger's performance works on screen even while acknowledging that the process made everyone miserable. The wranglers wanted the intense guy with the snarl to turn it off during lunch. Steiger never did. Number 8. Daves versus producer over scenery. Director Delmer Daves watches the dailies and grows increasingly concerned. Rod Steiger is delivering exactly what Daves didn't want. A big, mannered, theatrical performance that threatens to overwhelm the film's naturalistic tone. Steiger struts through scenes like he's still playing Judd Fry in Oklahoma, which he portrayed just 1 year earlier. The snarling, the exaggerated line readings, the physical intensity, it all reads as too much. Daves prefers the laconic Western style embodied by Glenn Ford, Ernest Borgnine, and Noah Beery Jr. These actors underplay their emotions, suggesting depths beneath surface calm. Steiger does the opposite, externalizing every thought and feeling through voice and gesture. His pinky dominates scenes through sheer performative force. The director considers reining Steiger in. Multiple takes with notes to pull back, to find stillness, to trust the camera. But producer William Fadiman watches the same dailies and sees something different. Fadiman loves what Steiger is doing. The producer argues that Pinky needs to be this outsized and theatrical to function as the film's villain. The character must feel dangerous, unpredictable, capable of violence at any moment. Steiger's big choices accomplish that goal. Daves finds himself overruled. Fadiman wants the scenery-chewing performance. Daves capitulates, allowing Steiger to continue his method-fueled intensity without restraint. Next to Ford's quiet dignity and Borgnine's naturalistic warmth, Steiger's Pinky feels like he wandered in from a different, more operatic movie. Critics notice the disconnect. Bosley Crowther's verse review in the New York Times includes pointed mockery. But not wicked Mr. Steiger, he is for the birds. The dismissive tone suggests Crowther found the performance ridiculous, but it endures as one of the most discussed aspects of the film over 60 years later. Number 7. Valerie French's American debut, Jezebel. British actress Valerie French lands her first American role by playing the most sexually predatory female character permitted in a 1956 mainstream film. May Horgan is voracious, calculating, venomous, a woman who manipulates men through sexuality and destroys them when they resist her advances. The role requires French to embody qualities that would typically get an actress labeled as difficult or unmarketable in Hollywood's production code era. French approaches May without sentimentality. She doesn't soften the character's cruelty or attempt to make her sympathetic. May married rancher Shep Horgan, believing him to be wealthy. She discovered he's just a hard-working ranch owner, coarse and uneducated. Her disgust with her husband is palpable. When Jubal arrives, younger, quieter, more refined, May immediately targets him for seduction. May corners Jubal repeatedly, makes explicit verbal advances, physically pursues him despite his rejections. When he chooses the virginal Naomi instead, May's rage turns murderous. She allows Pinky to beat her savagely, then uses her injuries to falsely accuse Jubal of adultery and assault. The lies directly cause Shep's death and nearly get Jubal lynched. French plays this trajectory without hesitation. She makes May repulsive yet fascinating, a woman whose unhappiness has curdled into pure malevolence. The performance required significant courage in 1956. Actresses who played sexually aggressive women risked being typecast or rejected. The gamble doesn't pay off professionally. Despite critical recognition for her work in Jubal, French never achieves major Hollywood stardom. She appears in a handful of films over the next few years before returning to England. Her American career essentially begins and ends with this single role. The performance endures as her legacy, a fearless portrayal of female sexuality and cruelty that still feels shocking decades later. Number 6. Gary Cooper's 14-year rejection. October 1942. Producer and director Sam Wood purchases film rights to Paul Wellman's novel Jubal Troop immediately after publication. Wood envisions a major prestige western starring Gary Cooper and Irene Dunne. Cooper would play the title character, a drifter haunted by his past who finds redemption through love. Dunne would play that woman, bringing her proven dramatic ability to frontier romance. Cooper reads the script treatment and declines. The reasons remain unclear. Perhaps he finds Jubal Troop too passive a protagonist for his screen persona. Perhaps the novel's dark psychological undercurrents don't appeal to him. The rejection halts the production before it begins. Wood continues trying to mount the film over the next 7 years. But Hollywood enters World War II, production priorities shift, and Jubal remains stuck in development. Then, on September 22, 1949, Sam Wood dies suddenly. The project dies with him. Columbia Pictures inherits the rights. In August 1953, the studio announces that Alan Ladd will star in Jubal with Raoul Walsh directing. This version also collapses before production begins. Ladd moves on. Walsh takes different assignments. The cursed adaptation seems destined to never reach screens. Finally, in 1955, Delmer Daves commits to directing with Glenn Ford in the lead. Ford brings the exact qualities Cooper rejected: moral ambiguity, wounded vulnerability, capacity for violence held in check by personal honor. Ford's Jubal is flawed and haunted, a far cry from Cooper's typical heroic cowboys. The 14-year journey demonstrates how completely different casting choices alter a project's entire character. Cooper's Jubal would have been a redemption western about an honorable man finding love. Ford's Jubal became a noir-tinged psychological drama about jealousy, false accusation, and near lynching. Number 5. The novel that lost everything. Delmer Daves and screenwriter Russell Hughes face an impossible challenge: how to adapt Paul Wellman's sprawling 355-page frontier epic into a coherent 101-minute film. The novel covers years of Western history, multiple storylines, dozens of characters, and elaborate historical context about cattle ranching, religious pioneers, and territorial conflict. The film must compress all of it into a focused psychological drama. Daves makes brutal choices. He keeps only the central love triangle and jealousy plot. The novel's extensive backstory about Jubal's traumatic childhood gets reduced to 2 brief scenes. Wellman's detailed exploration of frontier religious movements becomes a supporting subplot. The book's meditation on changing economic forces in the West, the conflict between cattle ranchers and sheep herders, the arrival of homesteaders, survives only in cursory mentions. The Hollywood Reporter review notes explicitly that the film Jubal dealt with only a small part of Wellman's novel. What Daves keeps is the Othello structure: Shep as the trusting Othello figure, May as the unfaithful Desdemona, Pinky as the scheming Iago, and Jubal as the falsely accused Cassio. Everything else gets sacrificed. The decision proves artistically successful, but limits the film's scope. Wellman's novel offers a comprehensive portrait of the 1870s Wyoming territory. Daves' adaptation delivers a taut chamber drama that happens to take place in Wyoming. The Grand Tetons provide spectacular scenery, but the story could unfold almost anywhere. The compression creates other problems. Characters like Reb Hayslip, played by Charles Bronson, feel underwritten. Bronson appears halfway through the film, attached to the wagon train for unclear reasons. He demonstrates loyalty to Jubal and skill with firearms, but the script provides almost no characterization. Bronson does impressive work implying mystery and competence with minimal dialogue, but the role needed more development. Daves gambles that psychological intensity can compensate for lost scope. The gamble succeeds critically. The film earns a 100% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes. But it also ensures Jubal remains a minor entry in the Western genre rather than a defining one. Number 4. Felicia Farr's fake debut. The opening credits proudly declare, "Introducing Felicia Farr." Columbia Pictures markets the actress as a fresh discovery, making her first screen appearance. Press materials emphasize her newness, her untested quality, her lack of Hollywood corruption. The studio presents Farr as the perfect embodiment of Naomi, the virginal pioneer woman who represents moral purity. There is only one problem. Felicia Farr is not making her film debut in Jubal. She previously appeared in the United Artists film Timidable, released earlier in 1956. Columbia Pictures knows this. The introducing credit is a deliberate fiction designed to enhance Farr's marketability as an innocent newcomer. The deception works in the short term. Critics and audiences accept Farr as a genuine discovery. Her performance as Naomi earns positive notices. She projects exactly the wholesome quality the role demands, providing necessary contrast to Valerie French's venomous May. But the fake introduction also limits Farr's career trajectory. By positioning her as an ingenue in 1956, Columbia restricts the types of roles she can pursue afterward. She becomes typecast in virtuous, supportive parts rather than complex leading roles. Her subsequent work includes solid performances in films like 3:10 to Yuma, but she never breaks through to major stardom. The introducing credit reflects a common Hollywood practice in the 1950s. Studios regularly lied about actors' backgrounds to create more appealing narratives. Clark Gable got introduced in multiple films despite years of prior work. Rita Hayworth was introduced several times under different names. The dishonesty was considered acceptable marketing strategy rather than fraud. For Farr, the false debut at least connects her permanently to a quality film. Jubal remains her most critically acclaimed work, but she deserved better than being falsely marketed as a newcomer when she had already demonstrated professional capability in previous work. Number 3. The Grand Tetons that overwhelm. Cinematographer Charles Lawton Jr. films Jubal on location in Jackson Hole, Wyoming during July and August 1955. The production uses the actual Triangle X Ranch as a primary location, with the Grand Teton mountain range providing backdrop for nearly every exterior shot. The scenery is so spectacular, it threatens to overwhelm the human drama entirely. Lawton shoots in CinemaScope and Technicolor, maximizing the landscape's visual impact. The wide frame captures the Tetons' jagged peaks looming over the valley. Jackson Lake reflects mountain vistas in crystalline detail. The rolling hills, dense forests, and open range create a frontier paradise that makes the film's violence and betrayal feel even more tragic by contrast. But the scenery's beauty creates tonal problems. Daves wants a dark, psychological Western, a noir-inflected study of jealousy and false accusation. but the glorious mountains and pristine wilderness keep suggesting wholesome frontier adventure instead. The cognitive dissonance between the stunning visuals and the ugly human behavior becomes one of the film's defining characteristics. Critics notice the disconnect. Multiple reviews specifically mention how the gorgeous cinematography contrasts with the sordid storyline. Bosley Crowther's verse review acknowledges the lovely scenery before detailing the melodramatic plot. Variety praises the location photography while describing the narrative as increasingly tense and violent. Modern viewers watching Jubal often remark that it feels like two different films fighting for dominance. The landscape photography suggests a celebration of Western beauty and freedom. The script delivers a claustrophobic tale of sexual frustration and murderous jealousy. These competing visions never fully reconcile. The Grand Tetons location connects Jubal directly to George Stevens' Shane, filmed in the same area 3 years earlier. Both films use the mountains to suggest an idealized frontier threatened by human weakness. But Shane achieves a mythic quality that Jubal never quite reaches. The Tetons work equally well for both approaches, but they don't solve the challenge of reconciling spectacular scenery with dark subject matter. Number 2. Charles Bronson's underwritten mystery. Charles Bronson appears halfway through Jubal as Reb Hayslip, a drifter traveling with the religious wagon train. His character arrives with no backstory, no explanation for why he's attached to the Pilgrims, no motivation beyond general wanderlust. The script gives Bronson almost nothing to work with except loyalty to Jubal and skill with firearms. Bronson had changed his birth name from Buczynski 2 years earlier to avoid being typecast in ethnic villain roles during the Hollywood blacklist era when Slavic names carried political suspicion. Jubal represents one of his early appearances under the new name, a chance to establish a different screen persona. Director Daves had worked with Bronson before on Drumbeat in 1954. Daves appreciated Bronson's naturalistic style and easygoing humor, qualities rarely tapped by directors who preferred to cast him as thugs. For Jubal, Daves writes Reb as a capable, mysterious cowboy whose unshakable loyalty to Jubal drives the climax. But the role is criminally underwritten. Reb has approximately 10 minutes of total screen time. He speaks maybe 20 lines of dialogue. His crucial act of saving Jubal's life comes almost out of nowhere because the script hasn't established enough of their relationship to justify Reb's willingness to kill for him. Bronson does impressive work suggesting depth and complexity through presence alone, but he needs more material. The problem stems from the novel adaptation choices. In Paul Wellman's book, the Reb character has substantial backstory and development. Daves cuts all of it to focus on the central jealousy triangle. Reb survives in the script only because someone needs to rescue Jubal during the final confrontation. 4 years later, Bronson gets his breakthrough role in The Magnificent Seven, which establishes his screen persona as the quiet, deadly professional. That character type owes something to the groundwork laid in Jubal, even though the role itself is barely there. Number 1. Borgnine fresh off his Oscar. Ernest Borgnine accepts the role of Shep Horgan in Jubal less than 2 weeks after receiving the Academy Award for Best Actor for Marty. The Oscar ceremony occurs on March 21st, 1956. Jubal premieres in New York on April 4th, 1956. Borgnine wins Hollywood's highest honor and immediately appears in a film where he plays a cuckolded, murdered rancher. The timing creates bizarre ironies. Borgnine's Oscar win celebrated his portrayal of Marty Paletti, a lonely Bronx butcher who finds love with a shy teacher. The role's sweetness and vulnerability made Borgnine a star after years of playing heavies. Jubal casts him as another big-hearted character who expresses crude warmth and genuine decency. But where Marty gets the girl and finds happiness, Shep Horgan gets betrayed by his wife and killed by his own jealousy. More strangely, Rod Steiger had originated the role of Marty in the 1953 television version that led to the film adaptation. So Jubal features 2 actors who played the same character trading new roles. Borgnine as the trusting friend, Steiger as the venomous manipulator. The reversal adds layers of metatextual irony to their scenes together. Borgnine's performance demonstrates his range while also revealing his limitations. He handles Shep's boisterous warmth effectively, making the character likable despite his coarseness. But Borgnine never quite convinces as a Western rancher. He's too much an Easterner, too obviously an actor playing cowboy, rather than embodying the role naturally. The Oscar winner status helps sell Jubal to audiences who might otherwise skip another adult Western. Columbia Pictures markets Borgnine's involvement heavily, but the strategy backfires slightly. Borgnine's Marty persona was so beloved that watching him get murdered in Jubal proves emotionally difficult for some viewers who wanted to see him continue playing sympathetic everymen who get happy endings. Bonus fact: the Marty connection nobody mentions. The strange triangle at the heart of Jubal involves two actors who both played Marty Piletti in different productions. Rod Steiger originated the role in the May 24, 1953 Goodyear Television Playhouse broadcast that launched the property. His performance was so acclaimed that Paddy Chayefsky expanded the teleplay into a feature screenplay. But when Delbert Mann directed the 1955 film adaptation, Ernest Borgnine replaced Steiger in the title role. Borgnine's Marty won 4 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Actor. The film became a cultural phenomenon. Steiger watched his signature role become someone else's Oscar triumph. The professional disappointment must have stung. 1 year later, they appear together in Jubal, playing variations on archetypes that mirror their relationship to Marty. Borgnine plays Shep Horgan, a big-hearted but socially awkward man who doesn't understand women. Essentially, an older, Western version of Marty. Steiger plays Pinky, a tortured introvert consumed by jealousy and rage, the dark shadow version of what Marty might have become if loneliness had curdled into bitterness. Multiple critics note the Marty connection explicitly in their reviews, recognizing how both actors bring echoes of that character to their Jubal performances. The film never addresses this metatextual relationship, but that coincidence adds resonance to their scenes together. The actor who lost the role watching the actor who replaced him play another version of the same character type. For audiences who loved Marty, watching Borgnine's Shep get murdered because of his wife's infidelity and Steiger's poisonous manipulation feels like witnessing an alternate universe where Marty's story ended in tragedy instead of romance. The two performances work in deliberate counterpoint, transforming Jubal into an accidental meditation on how small changes in circumstance can lead people down radically different paths. Jubal failed to become a major box office success in 1956 because audiences preferred uncomplicated Western heroics to Shakespearean psychological darkness. But time has vindicated its artistic ambitions. The 100% Rotten Tomatoes score based on modern critical reevaluation confirms what contemporary reviews suggested. This is an underrated masterpiece that deserves wider recognition. The film reminds us that Westerns can explore human psychology with the same depth as any other genre, that method acting can enhance rather than overwhelm naturalistic performances, and that sometimes the most interesting films are the ones too dark and complex to achieve mainstream popularity. Glenn Ford, Ernest Borgnine, and Rod Steiger created something that endures precisely because it refuses to comfort or reassure.